Hey family, happy Thursday. Welcome to Sgt Dorsey Speaks live at 5 here on Facebook and on YouTube. Hello to my subbies. What's up, everybody? Want to say that I appreciate each and every one of you. And so, Aaron, because you're number one through the door, sir, I really appreciate you. I barely got not podcast, I'm tripping. Barely got my camera lights and everything going, and you guys were you guys doing like that Mervin's commercial? You know, the one they always show around Christmas time when the lady is at the door and she's like, open, open, open. Is that what you guys are doing waiting on Sergeant Dorsey Speaks? Were you like at your screen, at your monitor, looking and thinking, it's like 512, Sergeant Dorsey, where you at? Open, open, open. I appreciate you guys. So, a lot going on this week. It's been a busy week, both professionally and personally. And so let me start off for my first time viewers on Facebook that are following me. Hopefully you are subscribing to me on YouTube. To my subbies that are new, don't know who I am. I have gotten tremendous feedback and response from my YouTube family. A lot of y'all are just now starting to know that I exist and understand who I am and what it is I do and say. And so I appreciate the surge in subscribers over the last week or so. And I don't know, what happens with algorithms on YouTube and how it is that you guys are just now finding me, but I'm happy about it. I talked on last week a lot about the whole Daniel Pantaleo and why I believe he was fired. And so my video on that alone had over 11,000 views. And so maybe that had something to do with making me available to more viewers. So I appreciate you guys. Hashtag tell a friend now that you know I'm here and you understand who I am and what I do and what I say is you can't get this stuff anywhere else, right? So I appreciate you. Again, for the newcomers, I'm a retired LAPD sergeant, spent 20 years in uniform on the LAPD. I've worked a variety of different patrol assignments while I was on the Los Angeles Police Department. And for those of you who don't know, LAPD is divided up, the city is divided up into 4 quadrants: West Bureau, Central Bureau, South Bureau, and Valley Bureau. And so during my 12 years, I worked in every one of those bureaus. Now, when dinosaurs roamed the earth and I was on LAPD, there was about 5 divisions per bureau, right? They're much more now because they've created new divisions or areas as they call them. And I had an opportunity during my time to work in varying parts of the city. So I understand, and you will too, to my LA family, when I talk about things that are one way south of the Santa Monica freeway, that's kind of the divider line for South Central Los Angeles, the hood, if you will, and the more affluent areas north of the Santa Monica freeway. And so what I've learned during my 20-year career is that police officers conduct themselves very differently when they're south of the Santa Monica freeway than they do when they're north of the Santa Monica freeway, right? And I'm sure that that's not unique to LAPD. I know that police departments all over the nation, and there's 18,000 of them, officers who work in areas where they think folks won't complain because we've been ignored wholesale, don't. And so officers just cut up and do what they do, right? But when you work on the west side, when you work Pacific Division like I did, or North Hollywood, and people you encounter let you know that they're on a first name basis with the captain and they will call and do call, you understand that officers get right when they leave 77th in June and find themselves in July over in West LA Division. So it's a thing that they can control when they want to. Those abuses of power, that drunk with power thing that I talk about all the time. Yeah, it's a real thing. And so, I just tell you what I know. Hey, Lisa, I just tell you what I know. Hey, Ron, I appreciate you enjoying the show. I enjoy you, Ron. Thank you for that. I'm just telling you what I know based on my lived experiences. And so listen, understand with all that I say and do, I am not trying to convince anybody of anything. And so to my trolls, what's up? Welcome. I appreciate you too, because you too help me with my algorithms and my analytics and all of that. And so, you know, once I let you do that thing that you do, well, some of you may have realized that I block you after that, right? Because you understand it's my page, it's my YouTube channel, and you don't get to just come on it and defile it and just say any old thing and think it's going to stay. It doesn't happen here in Sgt Dorsey world. But nonetheless, I just want to share with you guys, you know, week to week when I hear stuff, what I think about it based on my lived experiences as a Black woman, because I'm that first, as a mother, because I'm that second, and then as a police professional, as a sergeant of police, because I'm that thing third, right? And everything that I do is based on my positions in the order that I just said them: a Black woman, a mother, and a police sergeant. And again, to my naysayers, because some of you guys just refuse to do your homework. And so I didn't just start talking like this. I've written a book, Black and Blue, The Creation of a Social Advocate. And you can read my book. It's available on Amazon, also on my website, www.sgtdorsey.com, where I talk about my lived experiences on the LAPD, and I name names about instances and incidents that occurred when I was a police officer. Sometimes I use pseudonyms, aliases, monikers, cute little names that I like to give people, like, you know, Little Tink Tink. Those of you who've been with me for a minute, you know who Little Tink Tink is, right? And last week, I think I introduced you guys for the first time to the Mouth. I'll be talking about him a little bit later on in the show. But yeah, so I'll use, you know, monikers and aliases, because I just, you know, sometimes people move me in a way that I want to call them something other than their government name. And so I do that. And you may or may not know the incident, or you may or may not know the person by the moniker, but you'll know the incident based on maybe if you were on LAPD and where you were assigned, or you'll know the story because, you know, every police officer, every police department, you know, we have no secrets and everybody's in everybody's business, right? So that's what I do. I name names and I pull that curtain back, right? That's what I do. So let's get to it. Let me just dig right in. Before I do, let me just say this. Shout out to my homie, Christian McBride. Last night, he invited me to come and see him play at the Hollywood Bowl. And I've been there like twice in 2 weeks now. And that's not really a place that I go because I'm not a crowds kind of girl. But Christian, dude, I appreciate you for having me out last night. It was a good time. And I love you like a brother, a cousin. Yeah, I like you a lot, Christian. Thanks for that. I appreciate it. Oh, my book again is called The Creation of a Social Advocate, Black and Blue, The Creation of a Social Advocate. You can just Google my name, or you can Google the title of my book. And either way, you'll see my autobiography, and you can go to my website. SGT is the abbreviation that I use for all my social media. So it's sgtcheryldorsey.com or sgtdorseyspeaks.com, and you can find information. I don't want to kill your name, but Sakim Bembe. I know I'm ruining that, but sir, ma'am, that's where you can find my book. I appreciate all of that. And listen, because, you know, I'm trying to join the 21st century here and do all the things that the millennials are doing. So I have a Cash App for those of you who really appreciate my show, appreciate what I do, and want to support my cause. Sgt Dorsey Speaks is my Cash App. Go there and support me like you did Popeyes with those chicken sandwiches. I don't have one of those for you, but I try to give you something that's better than a chicken sandwich every Thursday, 5 p.m. Pacific, 8 p.m. Eastern. So having said that, I don't know where I want to begin. Listen, I don't know if I want to start off talking about the naked man, that was chasing the police. You know, the guy that was wanted for the triple murder, right? And he's chasing the police and they chasing him. And it was just silly. It it was just silly. Then he's choking people out. I don't know how you let a naked man choke you out, but nonetheless, all of that happened over the last few days. So I think I'm going to gloss over that and just get right to something that happened today that I became aware of because I got a phone call this morning. I get up every morning and I check my email for those of you who want to know how I start my day. I check my email to see if I have any notifications from my publicist about stuff that may be available for me. And so I got a last minute notification like news outlets do, TV shows do, and hey, can you come on? You know, we want to know what you think about this. So there's a couple right now that they're looking for, and this couple escaped in the midst of a transport. So let me say this. Some of you have seen the video, and if you haven't, it's on both my Facebook timeline, and I also downloaded it or uploaded it, whichever is the right way. Don't kill me if I said the wrong thing, trolls. It's on my YouTube channel. I was on HLN this morning. And so this couple was being transported after they had been involved in a murder back in May 1st. I think they killed someone, 72-year-old gentleman. It's an older couple in their 50s. Killed a gentleman May 1st, and then they finally captured him May 24th. So they'd been on the lam, if you will, for a minute, right? So you know they're runners. They find them. They wind up in New York. The murder happened in Utah, but they get them in New York, I believe. And now they're transporting them, they're extraditing them from New York to Arizona. Now, I don't know why they're going to Arizona, but anyway, maybe that was a roundabout route that they wanted to take to get back to Arizona. They were on their way to get back to Utah. They're on their way to Arizona. Now, help me understand, family, why in the hell are they driving in a van? Two security guards is how they're described, not U.S. Marshals, not police. Two security guards are driving these wackadoodles across the country in a van. Was this a straight through, or were they just going to drive straight from New York to Arizona? Were they going to stop at Motel 6 and stay overnight? I mean, it's just nonsensical to me that they would be transporting two murder suspects in a van. And so, you know, I guess the couple decided, well, shoot, it don't get no better than this. So one or both of them feigned some kind of a medical situation, and the security guards decided to pull over. And do what? Is what I'd like to know. Pull over and do what, sir? If you're not an EMS, what the hell are you pulling over for? And I guess they stopped in an area that was, I don't know, in the middle of no damn where, as they're driving to Arizona. And then the couple overpowered them. Now, I'm not into conspiracy theories, you guys. I'm really not. But that don't pass the smell test for me. So they escaped again. And so now they're looking for them. And that was one of the things that I talked about on this crime show on HLN this morning, which I shared with you on my YouTube channel. So you could check it out. They were driving a red vehicle, and I think there's some information on the story on HLN, but I'm sure by now they've probably ditched that car and are in something else. And there's also a picture of the both of them, so you can see that on the video as well. You know, they may try to alter their appearance. It's a mess. I don't know how that happened. So I'm thinking somebody got some splaining to do about that, because it doesn't make sense to me. It doesn't make sense to me. Anyway, so that happened this morning. Now, again, for those of you who are new, I have a podcast, Sgt Dorsey Speaks, available on iHeart, iTunes, TuneIn, Spotify, Spreaker, Stitcher, Tune in, Google Podcasts. I'm everywhere. So I hope that you subscribe, support me over there, and you'll find some stories on my podcast that are very different from the things that I talk about here with you every Thursday. My podcast drops every Tuesday. And so just so you know what you missed on my podcast, very briefly, there was a press conference last week by the Sergeants Benevolent Association president, and he represents Kizzy Adonis. Sergeant Kizzy Adonis, the female Black sergeant that was present when Eric Garner was choked to death. And the president of the Sergeants Benevolent Association, has a lot to say about why it made sense for Kizzy to give up 20 vacation days after man lost his life. And I'm not going to talk about it here, but I did talk about it over there. So, check out Sgt Dorsey Speaks podcast. Now, speaking about Eric Garner's death and Sergeant Kizzy Adonis and Pantaleo and all of that, it's been reported because the mouth, you know who the mouth is. He told all of his minion last week when Pantaleo got fired that you guys have a choice to make. And so that was code talk for slow down, don't do your job. There was a thing back in the day here on LAPD, we heard the term blue flu. Some of you on the East Coast may be familiar with it as well, when there's a work shortage or a work slowdown, right? Because officers are not happy about a thing, So they're calling this the Pantaleo Effect in New York right now. And it says that between August 19th and August 25th, when Pantaleo, I guess it was reported that he was going to be fired, there is a 27% decrease in arrests compared to last year. Last year, around this time, officers had made about 4,800 arrests, a little over 4,800 arrests. This year, between that time period, August 19th and 25th, arrests were only 3,500. Also, criminal summons are down right now, 29%. Down from 1,600 to a little over 1,100. And there was also a vote that I guess the mouth held. And so 379 union delegates did a vote of no confidence for Mayor de Blasio. They are, I guess they're blaming Mayor de Blasio because Commissioner James ONeal fired Pantaleo. Listen, that commissioner, he's a big boy. He gets to do what he wants. And he didn't have to fire him, but I talked about that too, so I'm not going to go into that again. It's on my podcast as well as my YouTube channel about why Commissioner James ONeal had to fire Daniel Pantaleo. Had nothing to do with de Blasio. And in my opinion, I know my subbies kind of think differently. Some of you believe that de Blasio made a big deal about that because he's running for president. Listen, I don't think he has a snowball's chance in hell of being the nominee, but he did want to try to take credit as best he could for having some sway with Daniel Pantaleo being fired. And I explained to you on my podcast and on YouTube why it is that this don't have nothing to do with de Blasio, don't have nothing to do with a prohibited chokehold. I'm not going to go into that again here. But, listen, if officers don't want to make arrests, and they're only talking about misdemeanor charges anyway, is what they're saying, turnstile jumpers and some other minor criminal offense that they're looking the other way for. So I guess this is a good time to get you a free ride on a subway if that's what you want to do, right? Anyway, this too shall pass, and they'll go back to doing their job because it's not like Pantaleo's going to get his job back. And so I don't know what this whole short shutdown or work stoppage is all about, because listen, at the end of the day, they're not hurting y'all. They're hurting the city of New York, the state of New York, because when you get a summons, when you get arrested, you get to pay money, right? And so eventually they'll go back to doing their job. And shame on Commissioner James ONeal if he allows this foolishness to drag on much more, because listen, do a damn recruitment drive and hire some people who would really appreciate having a good paying job. I say all the time, if you want to change police departments, get on them. So, hey, New York, this is an opportunity for you to get on that department and be part of the solution. That's just me talking. Last week, there was a LA County Deputy Sheriff, again, you missed this if you didn't check out my podcast, who feigned that he was a victim of a shooting. And I said last week, or on Tuesday when it posted, that, that was an easy fix. Angel Reynosa, yeah, he's no longer a deputy sheriff for LA County now because he was invested and, he did some stupid stuff. And now it's being reported that he's facing possible criminal charges. The DA, if they're talking about Jackie Lacey, good luck with that, because Jackie Lacey, she hadn't seen a police officer she wanted to prosecute in a long, long time. But they may make an example of this young man. They're going to decide whether or not they're going to prosecute him because of the resources that were expended during this fake shooting that he put out and said he was the victim of, and manpower and resources and personnel and hours. It's a lot of money. Outside agencies, he kind of made LA County look kind of stupid, right? I mean, they responded the way you would expect them to respond when an officer says, I just got shot at in the parking lot. They did what you would expect them to do. So they may make an example of this young man, and I hope he hurry up and get another job, because if and when that happens, he's going to be paying them back restitution for a long, long time. So that's going on over in Lancaster, California. I had some family from Twitter reach out to me because they are really engaged, if you will, with the shooting that occurred in Corona some months ago by an off-duty LAPD officer. I believe his name is Salvador Sanchez, off-duty in Corona, California, LAPD officer, got into some kind of a little altercation with another Costco shopper. Now, the family admits that there was some kind of an altercation. Their son, who was 32 years old, Kenneth French, punched, slapped, did something to this off-duty officer who was there with his child. And, now that both parents are able, they had a press conference and they talked about how devastating this chain of events has been, and how the mom particularly tearfully said she begged this officer not to retaliate against her son, who they say is a diagnosed schizophrenic. And so the family's version of what has happened, because we've not heard much from Corona PD nor LAPD about this incident, but the family is saying that the dad was shot once in the back because the officer fired about 6 rounds, okay? He hit dad once in the back. Dad has lost a kidney. These are older people. The mom was in a coma for weeks. She's had to have 7 surgeries as a result of her injuries, shot also in the back, according to the family. And then, of course, their 32-year-old son, Kenneth, was killed. So there's a lot of back and forth going on. There's video, evidently, that folks are trying to get their hands on. There's statements that people want to know about that were made by Costco employees who are now being told not to speak. And so this is going to be a long, involved process. And for those of you who are particularly engaged on Twitter, who have been asking me, to comment about this, I'm commenting about it. And I don't have much more to say or much more to offer you in terms of, what else can be done. They're going to take their time. And you would understand that you would want them to take their time. And whatever the outcome is, ultimately, I don't think it's going to be one that's going to be pleasing to anybody. This young man, Mr. French, is gone. His family, his parents, who are older, have medical bills probably and injuries that are probably life-altering for them now. And I think ultimately what will probably happen, I don't know if LAPD is going to fire this officer right now. He's, assigned to home. I guess he must have got his states mixed up and thought he was in Florida and did the whole stand your ground. He said he was in fear for his life and thought he was going to die. Why not just leave the store, sir? Really? You gotta You're going to stay there and argue with somebody when you have your child in your arms, and then you fire in 6 rounds and you hit everybody in the back? I don't know how you explain that away. So what I think will ultimately happen is that I think, that somebody is going to, hey, Barry, drive safely, sir. I don't want you distracted as you listen to me while you drive. They're probably just going to throw buckets of money at the family. They're going to throw buckets of money at the family. The family will sign a stipulation saying they can't speak, because that's what happens each and every time there's a settlement, right? Non-disclosure. And, that'll be that. And we may never hear anymore, because listen, once that family gets that check, they're not going to be able to speak. They're speaking right now. And at some point, Corona and LAPD may just want to shut them up and just give them some money to shut them up. It would be nice. It would be nice if, when these families demand money, and listen, I fully understand they deserve something. They should be compensated some kind of way. The department should not be able to just walk away wholesale. But it would be nice if, when they, cut that check for however many, zeros they're going to put on it, that they would also really make some substantive change in terms of policy and procedure with regards to how police officers conduct themselves. Sorry, you guys. You know what happens when I get on here with you. My nose starts running. You don't know what's going on behind me. I got a whole studio set up here. I got lights and ceiling fan, and it's a mess. But anyway, I think that, I think it would be nice if they could get more than just money to maybe save another family down the road. And so as I hear Twitter family, I will offer more opinion or tell you what I think about what's going on or not going on as I hear more. And so, speaking of not being in Florida, last week, not officer, but the civilian who was involved in that parking lot shooting, I think it was at a Walgreens, shot and killed Marquise McLaughlin. I think his name is Michael Draka. Draka is the last name for sure. I think his name is Michael. Shot and killed Marquise McLaughlin because he had parked in a handicapped style stall, and this Draka has a pet peeve, his words, about people who park in handicapped stalls. He has a family member, somebody with a disability, and sounds like this dude just goes around checking to see, and maybe at that particular Walgreens, who's parked in the doggone handicap stall. And so he had been there before checking out the stall, and you could see him on the video where he gets out and looks at the car. He walks all around it like he's really the police to see whether or not these people are, in his word, in violation, right? In violation. I talked about this on the Law and Crime Network with the co-host Linda Kinney Bodden about his engagement and his involvement, not only that day, but also during his trial. He was very engaged. He was very animated. And to me, it was a little off-putting. And I think that's why the 6-member jury didn't take much more than 6 hours to convict him. I don't know what his sentence is going to be. I think he's facing about 30 years for the murder of Marquise McLaughlin. And so once that sentence comes down, I'll let you know. But that happened last week. He'll be back in court. Draco will be back in court in October. And I'll keep you posted. Now, in local news also here, LA County Sheriff again, Lee Baca, former sheriff. There's so much swirling around right now with LA County Sheriff's Department with this current Villanueva sheriff and with the previous sheriff, Lee Baca, who was forced to resign. Some of you may remember he's 77 years old, and he was forced to resign his position a while ago because he had been indicted on federal corruption charges. And so now he's being implicated in some more corruption, if you will. And so here's the story. There's a guy by the name of Lev Oslin Derman, and he is a fuel trader. And there's evidently somebody who's a witness in this case of Lev who's going to testify that he saw Lee Baca accept money, a cash bribe from this fuel trader. Now, there are several other law enforcement officers who've been implicated and have already pled guilty. So that lends to make me think that if these other people have already pled guilty, there's probably some truth to it. Now, Baca's in prison already. I don't know how much more time they're going to give him at 77 and expect him to really do, but nonetheless, these other individuals that are involved and have pled guilty are a guy by the name of Anthony Chapa. Anthony Chapa is a former assistant director to the U.S. Secret Service. He retired from the Secret Service in 2008, and in 2011, he was the executive director of the Hispanic Police Command Officers Association. And allegedly in 2016, there were at least 2 companies connected to this Lev guy, this fuel trader, that had been making donations to this Hispanic Police Command Officers Association. And so Anthony Chapa pled guilty. Then there was another gentleman who is a former Glendale Police Department narcotics detective. He had been one for 13 years. His name is John Ballian, and he was 47. He too pled guilty to charges of accepting a bribe, obstructing justice, and making false statements. He received 3 years in federal prison for his role. And Felix Cisneros, 45, a former Homeland Security investigator, special agent for 11 years before he pled guilty. And he is currently serving 1 year in federal prison for helping an associate of Lev get across the Mexican border. And then there was a civilian, a chief executive officer, who has also pleaded guilty to a related conspiracy, tax, and wire fraud charges. So you've got all these folks pleading guilty, and what they believe is that this Lev guy, this fuel trader, created these relationships with these law enforcement officials so that he could have somewhat of an umbrella of protection, is the word they're using, for his criminal activity. And so as they look at Lev and get ready to go to trial with Lev, Lee Baca is implicated. So LA County is, a hot mess, a hot mess. Lev is currently in jail, being held without bond. He's been in jail since August of last year, and he's facing wire fraud, conspiracy, money laundering, and he will go to trial next month on September 9th. So I'll keep you posted and, let you know what happens in terms of Lee Baca, particularly. Somebody else had asked me, one of my Facebook family, Art, thank you, Art, for, reaching out to me and sharing articles with me like you do, and asking for my input and an explanation about AB 392. You guys know I've been very involved in AB 392, and the governor finally signed it. And there's a lot of people that are still not happy on both sides. And here's the deal. AB 392 basically speaks to when an officer can use deadly force. The language was changed from when an officer views it's reasonable to use deadly force, to when it's necessary. And the problem that both sides are having is that necessary hasn't really been properly defined. And so listen, I said all along, even when I was speaking in support of AB 392, that a good police officer can articulate necessary just like they articulated reasonable. And I think that's where the rub is because it's still kind of squishy and wiggly, right? But what AB 392 does is that it requires officers to de-escalate when possible. And so, we'll see, we'll see what happens and if it really makes a real big difference. Police officers, the unions, nonetheless, were very animated about this because they said it was unreasonable to ask officers to go through a checklist, before they use deadly force. And my response was, are you kidding me? You go through a checklist before you get in your damn car and drive off. And while you're driving, you're constantly reassessing a situation to determine, am I going to turn? Am I going to signal? Do I stop? How far behind the car in front of me do I stop? So listen, we have to be able to walk and chew gum, right? Think, and we can make those decisions very quickly. So we'll see what happens. if and when, and listen, we know it's only a matter of time before there's going to be, another fatal shooting. I'm sad to say. We'll see what happens in the courts and, with this whole AB 392. Let's see, next story. So this came to my attention, and I'm just going to share this. This is not police related, but I'm just going to share this because, listen, we all have family who could be subject to this, become a victim of this. And I'm talking about Nigerian scams. FBI recently took down an alleged Nigerian fraud ring, $48 million involved here in Los Angeles. And, the way they, I guess, got involved is that there was a Japanese woman, I think she was an older lady, who got involved with a Nigerian or someone who represented themselves to be a Nigerian. I know they did arrest some people that were Nigerian, but this lady got involved with somebody. She didn't think they were Nigerian. I think they were using a Hispanic surname. And the long and the short of it is they beat her out of $200,000. And I mean, she was borrowing money from Lottie Dottie and everybody to send to this person for a variety of reasons that just didn't make any sense. But I share this with you because, listen, this could happen to any of us and our family, right? I particularly had a family member who, was bilked out of her entire life savings before she passed away under a similar situation. And what happens is that, when people get older, they're easily led, they're easily confused. And, when, you can't talk to them, you guys know, I'm sure some of you out there have had a family member that, you just couldn't reason with because they're older. Maybe they're infirmed. They may have the beginning of dementia. There are a lot of reasons that, folks get preyed upon. And so I just think it's important to remember, I know I'm not the only one that gets emails, with, I got an Uncle Dorsey somewhere who, has got gazillions of dollars that he's trying to get to me. And if I just do this thing, they'll help me out. Right. So just look out for family, look out for your elders, and make sure that everybody is in a good place. Bottom line, 14 defendants were arrested last week here in LA on this whole Nigerian fraud thing. And it says that they're all facing charges of conspiracy to commit fraud, conspiracy to launder money, and aggravated identity theft. So, yeah. There are plenty of people out there who are looking to prey on, folks who are not in a good place, either because of ignorance or because of advanced age. So that's that. I appreciate everybody for coming by and hanging out with me. I'm looking at your comments, and those of you who I didn't respond to here real time, I see you. I'll get back to you once this video loads. But we'll do this again on next week. And so again, for those of you that are new, #tell a friend, subscribe, follow, share, like Sgt Dorsey Speaks here on Facebook. Do the same on YouTube, Sgt Dorsey Speaks, Instagram, SGT Cheryl Dorsey, Twitter, SGT Cheryl Dorsey. And if you have any questions, concerns, comments, anything you want me to expound on, explain, decipher that police code talk, I'm here to do all of that for you. So until next week, you guys, be good, be safe.